Good Saturday morning, folks. I hope that you are doing good on this Saturn's Day, June the 1st. Wow, that really did roll around quick, didn't it? I had several questions about how I layer the bottles, these Starbucks Frappuccino bottles that we are using as feng shui corner sitters. Thank you guys who have bought them. I really do appreciate it. I love this concept and I have wanted to do it for so long, so I'm really very glad to have this little concept out of the box and in the shop. I have a couple more of these to make today, and that's my mission, to try and get them finished today. I wanted to take you, because we've had so many questions through the process, my process of layering the bottles. I really have no idea of what I'm doing. Here's the beauty of art. I wing it and hope for the best. So that's kind of where I am. I can't really do a tutorial because I don't really know how to do things. I just do things. I have fun. I hope you have fun. I hope you try them yourself. That sort of thing. However, I do have a few like little handy hints for you guys as far as this layering process goes. I am not going to do the finishing touches on these bottles on camera because I never know how that's going to go, because Miss Muse is in charge of all that, the boss, and I never know what she's going to do. So that's not really a process that I can do a video about, the finishing touches. But I can offer you guys a few handy little hints about how to layer these bottles. This is my scrap box. This is my only scrap box. We don't have scrap boxes around here. We have one, and this is the one that I use to make chippies. I also use it to make tags. I also use it to, part of this box is the cat tag box, the cat collage box. The actual cat images I keep in a little plastic folder. If I have more than this, I'm just overwhelmed. This overwhelms me. This is just too much. So what I do when I've got a little project going on, I go through this box and I go through it very quickly. Can't take more than 5 minutes. And I cull a little stash of stuff to play with on a collage project. Okay, so I just call that big box into just a little stack, and this works really great for me. It may not work great for you, but having less to choose from makes me make better decisions. I also call everything else. Because these have to go really quickly, I have a small bottle of water. I have some Mod Podge that I have poured out of my big 32-ounce bottle of Mod Podge. I also have a little bit of tacky glue because sometimes elements are a little bit hard to stick to this bottle. So I've got a little tacky glue. It's white paint. I just had this with the rest of the things that I had culled out from big earth stashes. So it's just an easier, funner way to work, maybe a simpler way to work. I particularly, that didn't come out right, I really do like my teeny tiny water bottle, and this is a lysine bottle. I take lysine every day. I take valerian at night to sleep. Chris says that it's my drugs, but it's not. I take herbs and herbal remedies and stuff like that, but he calls it my drugs. So I always have a lot of these bottles. Let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do is make yourself a little stash. Make yourself a little stash. I'll show you what I've already gotten done on this bottle. Now, I have laid on some, I find that putting on, adhering on tissue paper, this is pattern paper, vintage pattern paper, really does help other papers stick to the jar. Okay, so you can see a little bit of a napkin here. This is a little bit of napkin right here. napkin right here, and this is some packing, some tissue paper packing, and this is a pattern, a vintage piece of pattern. So let's just kind of flip the jar. The cool thing about these jars is that they're actually four-sided, so you can kind of work on a side, and then you're going to have to let things dry, like on one side, then flip it over, start on the other side. You can turn it over like this and kind of try and do it like that. But the thing is these bottles go through layering. They go through a curing stage where you have to let it sit for 24 hours before you can kind of do anything else to it, because sticking things to a bottle, it's slick. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're adhering things, but that you're also letting things dry, because that's really important. Or it is to me. All right, let's get started. I've got my water right here. I am getting my art rag from my desk, which is just a blue rag that my friend Kathy gives me to recycle, which is awesome. I've got my Mod Podge right here. I think what I'm going to do is I need to put something right here, and I think this is going to be it. This is a little bit of a vintage, I think 1930s-ish pattern. So I'm just going to take this off. I like to do a couple things. I like to use the interesting focal points of this, but I also like to use it just as is. I think that this, you know, there's not a lot of pattern on here, y'all, and I think that makes it interesting. So I don't want to completely cover up things. I like a transparent-ish sort of jar thing going on. So we're going to lay this down right here. Now we've already got one layer of tissue paper, of napkin right here, which is a music pattern. Okay, I like that. If you get these phone books that, you know, they still make phone books, believe it or not. These are awesome for like that first layer, okay? So they are super thin, and they go on really nicely. Another thing that you cannot be too fussed about is when you have a crinkle wrinkle, like right there, because this is a round item. It may have a few flat surfaces on each side, but it's a round item. So it is going to have a few little wrinkles in it. No big deal. It makes it look cooler. All right, so let's see what else we got here. I'm looking for, kind of looking for these, I feel like that's super bright to use right there. So let me see if I can't find something else. Maybe a little more of this, because it's so subtle and I love it. I love sheet music. We watched on Netflix, a Robert Johnson documentary last night, and I thought it was so interesting. He was a different kind of soul, but a soul he was. You know, there is theorized that Robert Johnson, the guitar player Robert Johnson, sold his soul to the devil. But then it became apparent as the documentary went on that probably his, he was known to be an average guitar player that disappeared for about a year, came back on the scene and just blew everybody away. So it was kind of like, well, we think he sold his soul to the devil. But it then became apparent that he may have studied with Ike Zimmerman, who was an incredible guitarist in the Mississippi Delta, during the 1930s, which is very interesting. Anyway, the whole thing was interesting. The wild thing was, while we were watching it, we had this horrible storm that, it was a biggie. Chris is working on some garage flooding issues right now. Nothing like the Midwest people's, good Lord. Please stay safe out there. Good grief. Okay. All right. So we kind of have that first layer on, y'all. It's the thin-ish stuff that we're working with, you know, the tissue paper, the telephone book, the old pattern paper, sewing pattern papers, that kind of thing. So we sort of have that done. Now, we're going to kind of start adding some interest, you know, adding some color, adding some thicker-ish papers. So let's go ahead and do that. This is a sweet little scrapbook paper that I really do like, but I can tell that it's just going to be too thick for this project. I also have, let me see if I can find that. I really do love this, but this is watercolor paper and it's really thick. So what I'm going to do with this is I am going to attempt to kind of peel it in two, because it was a double-sided kind of thing. So yay, you know, this is good. I can use that. If it does not go down with the Mod Podge, we'll see what happens here. Okay, yay. It did go down with the Mod Podge really well. But this is like one of those items that you might have to use some tacky glue on. No hot gluing, unless you're just really into the hot glue. I am not. Don't like it. Okay, I think I might want to use that here, but I'm feeling that that's probably not going to adhere there that well. I definitely want to use this fabric. A thinner kind of fabric really does work well on these bottles. I also like using partial images. I'm partial to the partial image. I think that anytime that you can do something that kind of leaves part to the imagination, it adds a lot of interest to the piece. This fabric is so interesting. It has a lot of different patterns going on it, so I really do love using this. But I've already used fabric here. So what I want to do is just kind of fill this space right here, and I think that I'm going to do that with a piece of text. Now I have a couple things to choose from here. I think I'm going to use this because it just kind of fits the piece. When you're working with vintage text, and this is just a hint, some of it's super yellow. Kind of juxtapose that super yellow with something starkly white. I think it just kind of adds interest to it. Again, I might not be able to, well, there it goes. My Podge is my friend. Okay, there we go. Just like that. See, that worked out really well. Okay, so we got a cool thing going on here. I'm going to stop right here because I think I've shown you guys how to layer these bottles. Use something thin first and then start putting your text pages or your painty papers or your fabric pieces over that initial. Now that was dry, okay, or basically dry when I started kind of layering over it. Sometimes you get a pull, especially when you're working with napkins. You might get a little bit of pull from a napkin, but you know, just turn that pull so you get a little bobble. Just turn that little pull into something cool. See, this pulled off the, you can see there's a little bump here. It pulled off the napkin that I was decoupaging down, so I just kind of pulled it into a pile and made it, you know, made it part of the of this initial Starbucks logo here. So, you know, that was fun. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. It was really requested last night, so I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, y'all. Have a happy Saturday. Bye.